Hello again and welcome to VAT Update from Tax Essentials for Advisors. I'm Ed Thompson. Although we're still warming up into the new year, there's an opportunity to cover off some interesting developments from the end of last year that we hadn't covered in previous editions. We'll look at HMRC updates and cases this time. And on HMRC, we have an important HMRC brief on locum doctors, some updated guidance on partial exemption, and a new insolvency practitioner's handbook. We'll also cover an interesting case about how you characterise a single supply of a package of elements so you can determine what the VAT treatment is. At the end of last year, HMRC published a business brief setting out an update on the treatment of temporary medical staff, including locum doctors. Now, HMRC has previously had a very narrow interpretation of the circumstances under which VAT exemption could apply to the supply of temporary medical staff like locum doctors. But a recent case, the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, which we reported on in a previous edition of VAT Update, suggested that the VAT exemption was a lot broader than HMRC would have had us believe and could cover, for example, locum doctors supplied by employment businesses. There's now a potential reclaim or refund opportunity for healthcare providers that have suffered a VAT cost on temporary medical staff, where those services should actually have been VAT exempt. Now, it's not straightforward. Healthcare providers will have to work with their suppliers and look at the precise wording of their contracts to see what they're entitled to. And there is a sting in the tail for the employment businesses involved as well, because if they're making exempt supplies of medical staff, then that's going to affect their ability to recover VAT on costs. All in all, taxpayers who are affected should act promptly but carefully, bearing in mind time limits, contractual obligations, and the impact on VAT recovery through the supply chain. VAT recovery on share sales is very much in the spotlight at the moment following the Supreme Court's judgment in Hotel Latour. Now, we reported on that case in the last update, and broadly, the Supreme Court concluded that VAT recovery was not possible on costs that related to a share sale because that sale was exempt from VAT, and it didn't matter that the funds from the share sale were going to be used to do further VATable things in the future. Now, we also have updated guidance from HMRC on how share sales affect your VAT recovery calculation under partial exemption. As a brief reminder, there are two broad steps to partial exemption. The first step, work out if there are costs that are related exclusively to taxable or exempt sales. VAT on costs that's exclusively related to taxable sales can be recovered, but VAT on costs that's exclusively related to exempt sales can't usually be recovered. That step is known as direct attribution. Step 2, where you have costs that relate to both taxable and exempt sales, like overheads, then you can recover a portion of the VAT using a percentage that is normally calculated by reference to the ratio of your taxable sales to your total sales. Now, this HMRC guidance now clarifies that for businesses that haven't agreed a bespoke special method of VAT recovery with HMRC, if the share sale is incidental to other business activities, then the value of the share sale is excluded from the calculation of that recovery percentage at step 2. This is nothing new, but it's good to see the principle spelled out in HMRC guidance, and it's a good reminder because VAT recovery on share sales trips up businesses all the time, especially when they're used to just recovering all the VAT on their costs. Our final HMRC update is that HMRC has published a new handbook for insolvency practitioners. Now, dealing with VAT as an insolvent business can be extremely complicated, and there are a lot of nuances that practitioners need to be aware of. That can include issues around cancelling VAT registration, dealing with VAT post-deregistration, partial exemption issues, and transfer of a going concern issues, to name just a few. This new handbook isn't just VAT focused, but it contains a lot of information on VAT for insolvency practitioners and brings together a lot of the guidance from HMRC's VAT notice on insolvency, which frankly wasn't always the most user-friendly. Now, the only VAT case I want to cover this week concerns that ever-present issue of single and multiple supplies. Now, as a reminder, the issue's this. I provide goods or services together as a package with various elements. But the question is, for VAT purposes, am I providing one thing or many different things? And if I'm just providing one thing, how do I best characterize that thing so I can decide what the VAT treatment should be? In this first tier tribunal case, the taxpayer provided a package of services which was based around it being a biographer for every person. Now, they provided various packages that involved interviewing the customer, writing up their story, and it all culminated in a deliverable of hardback books and a digital publication. It was common ground that this package was a single supply for VAT purposes, but was it a single supply of 0 rated books or a single supply of a standard rated bespoke ghostwriting service? The tribunal followed the approach of looking at the predominant element of the supply to determine how it should be characterised for VAT purposes. And in its view, the typical consumer was concerned with ensuring that a book is produced to be shared and enjoyed in its physical form. Consequently, the predominant element of the single supply was the 0 rated physical book. And that's a wrap for this edition. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to presenting a further update in a couple of weeks' time.
Please do visit our webshop to view our full range of solutions, from our in-depth commentary and guidance to our advice-led newsletters and media content